Good morning. Welcome to UUI on such a beautiful spring morning. So my name is Matt Russell, my pronouns are he, him, and I am a member of your ministerial search committee. So if you're here for the first time, thank you for joining us. We look forward to getting to know you better, and we invite everyone present here in the sanctuary to join us for our in-person coffee hour right out there, outside the main doors, after the service. So during our service, there is a time for sharing joys and sorrows, and there is a card and a table right back there where you can write down joys and sorrows to be shared during the service. We ask that you pick them up and fill them out prior to that section of the service. So community, it's one of our core values. And this means that we love and care for each other while providing opportunities for fellowship and personal growth. And we strive to be a welcoming community for spiritual growth, moral reflection, social action, and religious education. We're really glad that you're here today. And I hope and we hope that you find some, spiritual significance and some meaningful thoughts that come out of the service today. Thank you for being here.
Morning. I am Maria Renner, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm honored to serve our congregation today as worship associate. A lit chalice is the symbol of our faith as Unitarian Universalists, a beacon that calls us back to ourselves and forward into the work of love and liberation. This morning, we welcome Lily and Savvy to light the chalice. As we light our chalice in the sanctuary, I invite those on Zoom to light a chalice or a candle and to type your location into the chat. Our chalice lighting and opening words today are by Jack Mendelson. Here in this sanctuary of ancient dreams and wisdom and beauty, we come to grow, to be healed, to stretch mind and heart, to be challenged, renewed, to be helped in our own continuing struggles for meaning, for love, to help build a world where more justice and mercy is in it, to be counted among the hopers and doers. In this face of cynicism, darkness, brutality around us and within, we seek to align ourselves with a living community that would affirm rather than despair, that would think and act rather than simply adjust and succumb. Here we invite the spirit of our own humanity and the healing powers under, around, through, and beyond it to give us the nerve and grace, the toughness and sensitivity to search out the truth that frees and the life that maketh all things new.
Please rise in body or in spirit as we join together in singing hymn number 1023, Building Bridges. We're going to do it once through all together, then we're going to do it 3 more times as a round. And I'll lead this side. Dawn, you can lead that one. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me with all of our voices and all of our visions? Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me with all of our voices and all of our visions? Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me with all of our voices and all of our visions? Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me with all of our voices and all of our visions? Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Would you please join me now in saying our covenant, which is on the screen and also in your bulletin? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. And now let us say our covenant in Spanish. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, ayudarnos unos a otros. Este es nuestro pacto. Please be seated. Our congregation is a lively community with many opportunities to participate. Here are a few announcements for today, but please check your order of service for more. The Caring Team is in need of volunteers and team leads for the Joys and Sorrows team and the Meal Train team. Contact Reverend Don for more information. The board sent out an email to all friends, members, and returning visitors this past Monday with a subject line of Meeting the Moment. If you do not get this email, please check your spam folder. The UUI Rummage Sale will be returning this summer on behalf of the UUI Fundraising Committee. Save the date for June 28th. More details will be forthcoming.
One of the things that Matt said when He was welcoming everyone this morning. He mentioned that community is one of the core values of this congregation, meaning that we provide love and care for each other. One of the ways we do this is through the sharing of the joys and sorrows of our lives together that deepen our connections to this community and to one another. As the music plays in just a minute, I invite people in the sanctuary to come forward and drop a stone into the bowl if something is on your mind or on your heart today. Please use both sides of the table. And if you've written your joy or sorrow on a card for me to read, please drop it in the basket on the table here and I will read it out loud. Please do note that the cards are by the entrance to the sanctuary for easy pickup when you come in. For those of you who are on Zoom, we invite you to use the chat feature to share your joy or your sorrow. Please put either joy or sorrow in all caps, plus your name and pronoun at the beginning of what you are sharing if you would like me to read it out loud here in the sanctuary. You can also symbolically drop a stone into the bowl by typing drop stone or just DS into the chat. Let us share the joys and sorrows of our lives with one another. Sarah shared this morning. Craig shares the joy of the music last night in the sanctuary here from Susan Werner and says that it was uplifting. Don shares the sorrow that his cat Annabelle's kidney problems are getting worse. Patrick shares the sorrow that he is deeply saddened by comments made by the Trump administration regarding autism. Lydia shares the joy that she will be 7 on May 8th. Happy birthday. Sandra Gruber shares the joy that Earth Day was her 60th birthday. Happy birthday. Sarah shares both a joy and a sorrow that Luca fell on his trike this week while riding to school and broke his wrist. And Sarah is very happy for the kind person who stayed with him for 30 minutes until she could get there. Matt shares the joy that he is looking forward to Star Wars Day, May the 4th, in religious education with the middle school students. That'll be a lot of fun. And Erin shares the joy that she enjoyed spending 2 days with friends and more than 650 other handbell musicians at a conference and concert in Ohio. They filled a huge room with music. And Jen shares the joy that they gave their presentation at IU Research Day conference on Friday. And though they were nervous, they did it, and their mentor said they did a great job. Though they may not be shared today, we know there are many more joys and sorrows that remain on our hearts and on our minds. Let us pause now for a moment of prayer and meditation by practicing something called box breathing together. This is also a technique known as square breathing, and it's a relaxation technique that calms our nervous system and decreases stress, which I think all of us need right now. So what you do for this is you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, and then you hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then you slowly exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds, and then finally you wait another 4 seconds before you breathe in again. And then keep doing that. We don't all have to be breathing on the same pace, but in, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. As you do this breathing, try to breathe from your stomach instead of your chest, expanding your belly forward. Blessed be, and amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots only close, wings set me free. Spirit of life,
Good morning. I bet y'all didn't know I could be in two places at once, did you? If all is going well, I am probably somewhere around Galesburg, Illinois right now, on our way back from a youth conference in Coralville, Iowa. But today's sermon topic was so important that I really wanted to be with you with the Words for All Ages anyway. So I want to tell you a little story. Annabelle stood outside the back door of the church, hugging herself like this and trying not to cry. She really hadn't meant to cause a problem. It was just that when so many things were going on at once, she started to get stressed out. Everything was so distracting, which had made her notice all over again that her shoe was eating her sock, and she didn't have time to go sit down somewhere and fix it, and even if she did, it was just going to happen again. And someone had asked Annabelle for help with something, and she'd said yes, but it was taking longer than it should have because people kept talking to her like they couldn't even see she was doing a job. And some of the stuff she was supposed to use hadn't been put away where it was supposed to be. And it took her a long time to find it, and now she was annoyed at whoever had caused that problem. She didn't want to ask anybody about it because it was her job, wasn't it? What was the point of being a helper if you were just going to make someone else do it anyway? Her mom always liked to say that whenever she asked a question. And Annabelle was hangry too, which, if you'll remember, is the combination of hungry and angry. Because when she was getting ready for church, the last yogurt in the fridge had already been partly open. And she was the only person in her house who ate that kind of yogurt, and she hadn't opened it, so maybe it had come home from the store that way, and it probably wasn't safe to eat, but nothing else sounded good. So all these problems were just piling up, and Annabelle couldn't think, and more people kept coming in, and church was about to start, and the thing she had said she would do wasn't done yet, and someone was going to get mad at her, and that's why she had shouted at that boy. Because he was just one more person in her way, and it was too many problems for one brain. And now everyone was mad at her, and they probably didn't even want her there anymore. And how on earth was she going to go back inside? Things had been so much easier when she was a kid. Matt and his mom were in the sanctuary looking into the social hall. And his mom kept telling him it was okay, but it didn't feel okay. Coffee hour was still going on, but people were looking at him when they thought he couldn't see, and he could tell there was one of those conversations going on in the social hall kitchen, the kind where the grown-ups in charge are trying to figure out what to do. You weren't supposed to talk back to grown-ups. You couldn't do it at school, or on the bus, or even at Taekwondo. It was just that Matt knew you weren't supposed to act like that at their church. He had just as much worth and dignity as a grown-up, and everybody was supposed to keep love at the center. They talked about it in RE all the time. And Matt hadn't been doing anything wrong. He'd been offering to help, actually. He guessed he had been blocking the kitchen door, like Annabelle said, but the door was the only way into the kitchen, unless you went all the way around outside, which kids weren't supposed to do because there weren't any background checked adults outside, and the door was locked. And anyway, this door was right there. If Annabelle didn't want help, fine, but it did hurt his feelings because she acted like he couldn't possibly even be any help, which was how some grown-ups treated kids, but you grown-ups weren't supposed to because that was a stereotype, and kids were good at lots of things. So he didn't even think. He just blurted it right out. Don't talk to me that way. And he could have said something like that in RE and it would have been no big deal. But obviously saying that to a grown-up was a huge deal. And that stank because it meant that maybe sometimes UUs said they believed in things, but didn't actually do them. And he had really, truly believed he was just as important as anyone else here. And if he wasn't, then how on earth was he going to go back inside? I bet you're wondering what happens next. And that's a really good question that's hard to answer because it's different every time it happens. There is no community without conflict, but some communities have good tools to use when conflict happens. I think we can be one of those communities. So I want to tell you what I hope happens for Annabelle and Matt. I hope they both come back in. I hope everybody at church tells them they are both important. I hope nobody makes excuses for Annabelle. I hope everybody agrees Matt was right to speak up. I hope they already have a covenant up on the wall. Not a spiritual covenant like the one we say each Sunday that talks about the spirit of this church, but one that says how we're supposed to act and what we do when we mess up. We have those in RE, don't we? But sometimes that's the only place we have them. I hope there are people at church who know how to help when there's a conflict, and that they remember that it's hard to be a kid at church because in so many other places, it's just like Matt said. He's wrong automatically because Annabelle is a grown-up and he's not. He needs extra people to support him. And maybe he needs to tell a grown-up what he wants to say, and the grown-up can carry his message for him. I hope Annabelle says sorry and thanks Matt for trying to help her. I hope next time she asks for help before she's too upset to receive it. I hope Annabelle says, I will try again. I am so sorry to not be here with you all today, but I'm imagining all of your bright, warm, smiling faces, just the way that they look at me every Sunday, making me so happy that I've come to church. And that's what I'm going to carry in my heart as I drive across Illinois and as you are all sung out to your religious exploration groups.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
So one of the things I love about the story Sarah told is, I think many of you were like me the first time I heard it, and I was picturing Annabelle as a young child. And then when she says, you know, things were much easier when I was a kid, I was like, oh, she's a grown-up. And then I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, so there I was, flying around the track on my roller skates, adrenaline pumping. My team was behind on points, and I felt the pressure to push myself to help us catch up. Yes, beloveds, it is a roller derby sermon. Thank you. But especially with this one, you can substitute any team sport in your mind, okay? As I scanned the track ahead, I saw a wall of 3 skaters locked shoulder to shoulder right on the line, ready to block my every move. I didn't see a way to go around them, so I tried to go through them. In my attempt to break through, my elbow flew up too high and collided with an opposing skater's face. Well, her helmet, thankfully, her face was fine, and I was glad to be wearing elbow pads. But still, whistles blew from every direction, sharp and immediate. And just like that, I was sent to the penalty box. Just a few chairs off to the side of the track, but it felt so far away from the action. I watched my teammates scramble to adjust without me as the opposing team scored point after point after point, putting us even farther behind. I was frustrated, embarrassed, and kind of heartbroken. I hadn't meant to hurt the opposing player. I definitely hadn't meant to let my team down. But it didn't matter what I had intended. My elbow had connected with her helmet. That was the impact. That was what mattered. When my time in the penalty box ended, I rejoined the game. Eventually, I skated back to the bench feeling bad, and I wasn't sure how my teammates would react. Would they be angry with me? Would they blame me for leaving them short of a player and allowing all those points to get scored? Instead, though they were clearly bummed about having given up so many points, they joked with me about my elbows of death. My coach gave me a quick pat on the back and told me to do better next time. And a few minutes later, I was out there again. And let me tell you, I was much more attentive to my elbows. In roller derby and in all team sports, there are some rules that are not just arbitrary, they're there to keep people safe. In football, late hits are not allowed. Basketball disallows flagrant fouls. In hockey, high sticking and checking from behind are not allowed. All sports have rules that disallow dangerous behavior. Even extreme sports like boxing or mixed martial arts, there are rules that are there for the player's safety. My elbow to the face in roller derby wasn't just a foul, it was dangerous. If the ref had let it slide, it would have set a precedent. It would have said, safety is negotiable. And it's not. Because when safety is up for debate, so is trust. And without trust, no one plays their best game. We hold back, we brace for impact, we stop passing the ball or taking risks, we stop skating like a team, and the game falls apart. It becomes the Hunger Games instead of a sport that we love to do together. The penalty box is accountability in action. It's not punishment for punishment's sake. It's a timeout to reflect, to recalibrate, and return to the game better able to play by the rules. Rules that are necessary because they create safety. They create the container for the magic of the team sport to happen. But accountability can feel painful. Sitting in the penalty box, I felt helpless as I watched my team struggle without me. But those few minutes of reflection reminded me that my actions have consequences, and my teammates were counting on me to play responsibly. And it reminded me that the impact of my actions matters more than my intent. And that moment when I was welcomed back from the penalty box, when my failure was met with compassion instead of condemnation, that, beloveds, that was grace. Grace isn't about ignoring the impact or excusing the behavior. It's about holding space for the possibility of growth. Grace says, you're still welcome here, and I believe you can do better. Grace does not erase accountability. It makes accountability bearable. It reminds us that we are more than the worst things that we have done. It gives us a chance to return, to try again, and to prove that we've learned something. Without grace, accountability can feel like rejection, but with grace, it becomes an opportunity for growth. However, grace does have its limits. In roller derby, as in most sports, repeated penalties can lead to an ejection from the game. The refs aren't being cruel when they make this call. They're protecting the safety of everyone in the game. If I had gone back out on the track and I had just kept throwing elbows, putting other skaters at risk, I would not have been allowed to continue staying in the game. This isn't about punishment. It's about protection. A skater who refuses to play safely jeopardizes not just their opponents, but their teammates as well. Accountability is how we maintain the health and safety of the whole, and grace says we can learn from our mistakes until we've caused too much harm or become too dangerous to play. Do you see where I'm going with this? Maybe? The same is true in life, where accountability and grace matter as we build community, as we build this congregation together. Without accountability, harm will continue unchecked, and safety, whether physical or emotional or spiritual, becomes impossible to maintain. This isn't just a sports metaphor that translates into building community. This is how we build community. In sports, the rules of the game tell you what's allowed and what's out of bounds. And in our congregation, we have something similar. We call it a covenant. Each week, we read our poetic covenant together at the start of the service. It's beautiful and aspirational, but we also have a behavioral covenant, a clear and practical version of how we all agree to treat one another that tells us what playing safely actually looks like. You may have found a copy of that behavioral covenant on or near your seat today, and I will be sharing the link in Slack as well. This covenant was first implemented at UUI back in 2008, and it was refreshed and reaffirmed by the Board of Trustees last year. I encourage you to read with it, to sit with it, because covenant is how we say to one another, you matter, your safety matters, and so does that of everyone who walks through those doors. And so it matters how we treat each other. And just like in any sport, sometimes we need someone to remind us of the rules, not to punish, but to protect. That's why the board will be working on forming a right relations team here at UUI in the coming months. Think of a right relations team as a bit like referees, not with whistles and penalties, but with compassion and clarity. The role of the right relations team will be to help us remember how to stay in covenant, how to hold one another accountable, and how to keep this community safe and strong. It's not about perfection. It's about practice. It's about learning how to be in community together, even when it's hard, even when we mess up, especially when we mess up. Whether you're in a roller derby bout or a church function, the goal is the same, to keep everyone in the game safely, to make sure that when harm happens, it is addressed, to make room for people to learn and grow and return and try again. Accountability isn't just a strategy for conflict, it's the foundation for trust, and trust is what makes community possible, just like in a game. Accountability is essential to building healthy community, and so is grace within limits. And when grace runs out, it also isn't punitive, it's protective, because unchecked harmful behavior fractures relationships, organizations, and entire congregations. Accountability and grace are both essential when we're working to build diverse and equitable communities. Because we are human beings, mistakes are inevitable, and we are all still learning. So we're all gonna throw the elbow accidentally, occasionally, every now and then, especially when we're stepping outside our comfort zones or challenging ingrained systems of oppression. We will misstep, we will make mistakes, we will cause harm, even unintentionally. And when that happens, we may find ourselves invited to the penalty box or being called in. Okay, imagine this. Imagine there's a community that has several people with severe peanut allergies, and it's posted all over the place to not bring anything with peanuts into the building, and especially don't bring anything with peanuts to a potluck, okay? And one person either ignores or doesn't see the signs to not bring peanut dishes to community potlucks. At first, accountability and grace might look like calling that person back in to covenant by saying something like, "We know you probably didn't mean any harm, but we've got folks here with peanut allergies, so we need you to take this seriously and not bring dishes with peanuts to our potlucks." It's direct. It's not a takedown. It's not punishment. It's a request for change that leaves the door open. Being called in this way, being called back into covenant, is an invitation to do better. It acknowledges room for growth and assumes that someone is capable of rising to the challenge. Being called in is an act of care, a chance to recognize our mistake, reflect on it, and make amends. Oh my goodness, no, I didn't see the signs, or I forgot. I will do better next time and not bring peanut dishes again, right? Being called out, on the other hand, is much more firm. It is a boundary line in the sand. It names the harm clearly and says, this behavior is unacceptable and it needs to stop. If that person continues to bring recipes with peanuts to the potluck, being called out might sound something like, "We have asked you multiple times to not bring peanuts to the potluck. This is putting people in danger. You cannot keep doing this. You cannot attend these potlucks until you covenant with us to stop bringing peanuts." Reasonable, right? Because the peanuts are putting people in harm, right? Calling someone out is also not about shaming. It's about protecting the community when gentler efforts haven't worked and when the harm is just too serious to ignore. Now, both being called in and being called out, it can happen in public or it can happen privately, and both can be really painful, really. But while calling in leaves room for change, calling out explicitly protects the community when that change isn't happening or when the harm is too serious to allow it to continue. I know firsthand how painful being called in, and especially being called out, and especially being called out publicly, can be. In my justice work in Louisville, Kentucky, I unintentionally contributed to a toxic environment repeatedly. I got sent to the metaphorical penalty box, and then when I didn't correct my behavior, my peers had to call me out, and I was eventually ejected from the game. It was one of the most painful and humbling experiences of my life. And it was one of the most transformative because I did eventually learn and realized the harm that I was causing. It deepened my capacity for empathy. I got much better at listening to other people, and it ended up strengthening my commitment to justice. Being held accountable pushed me to grow in ways that I would not have otherwise. I would not have otherwise. And it made me a better leader, a better minister, a better teammate, whether in roller derby or in fighting for justice. The truth is, being held accountable, it takes practice. None of us get it right all the time. The goal isn't to avoid the penalty box forever, though. It's to learn from each trip and come back stronger. Each time we're called in or we're called out, we have an opportunity to deepen our understanding, to refine our skills, and show up better for our teammates, for our communities. And in roller derby and in life, the best skaters I know, the best athletes I know have all spent time in the penalty box. The best justice makers I know have all had times where they were called in or called out. What sets them all apart is their willingness to learn from their mistake and keep working to improve. Same as in working for justice, same as in working in a congregation. We are all going to mess up. It is part of being human. The question is, will we choose to grow from those moments? As I sat in the penalty box that day, I realized that accountability wasn't just sitting out part of the game. It was about becoming the type of teammate that my kind of player that my teammates could trust and could rely on. And when they welcomed me back to the bench, I saw that grace wasn't about ignoring my mistake. It was about believing that I could do better. And so I did better. Accountability and grace don't just help us handle conflicts. They enable us to build communities of trust, resilience, and genuine connection. They work together to keep the game going and to keep community strong. They help us to learn and grow and get back to the important work stronger, more safely, and more connected than before. May it be so. May we make it so together.
To sit and dream, to sit and read, to sit and learn about the world, to sit and dream, to sit and read, to sit and learn about the world, to sit and dream, to sit and read, to sit and learn about the world. Outside our world of here and now, outside our world, our problem world, our problem
to sit and dream. Each month, UUI gives half of the Sunday collection to a cause chosen by our Social Justice Committee. This April, the Share the Plate offering will go to DRUM, Diverse and Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. DRUM is the oldest and largest Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led organization in our faith. When you give to DRUM, you are investing in the fabric of our faith, in the development of leadership, and in the future of a multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-generational Unitarian Universalism that we can believe in. Your donation says yes to living in a world that thrives from our diverse voices and supports an organization that brings authenticity and humanity into our spiritual and religious life. Your giving builds the world we dream about and realizes our values in the larger world. You can give on your smartphone by texting the dollar amount you want to give and the word share to the phone number, which is in the chat and in your bulletin. You can also give on our website at uui.org. Here in the sanctuary, ushers will come around to collect donations. Give what you can with joy and wild abandon. Thank you for your support and generosity. Thank you for your generosity. Our closing words today were co-written with ChatGPT. As we leave the sanctuary today, may we carry with us the spirit of the penalty box, not as a place of shame or rejection, but as a space to pause, reflect, and grow. May we have the courage to hold ourselves and one another accountable with compassion, always mindful of impact over intention. May we have the wisdom to extend grace, recognizing that each of us is more than our worst moment. Let us return again and again to covenant, remembering that community isn't about perfection, it's about practice. It's about trusting one another enough to show up, mess up, and then step up to try again.
Please rise in body or in spirit as we join together in singing Life Calls Us On. You'll find the words on the back of your order of service. Here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known, with a pledge to one another that we journey not alone. Joy and sorrow make us wise, kin to all that lives and dies. Love calls us on. Love calls us on. Joy and sorrow on us, waken here to keep us strong. Lend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Loyal guides in love and duty, leads us with a trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and right. Honor is their earthly prize. By their work we realize faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared a radiant tower when the truth has made us free, and the Spirit's gracious power dreamed of good that yet shall be. Bright the path before us lies. Joyful pilgrims, now we rise. Life calls us on. Life
Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words on the screen and printed in your order of service. Now we extinguish the flame of our chalice, but not the light of understanding, the warmth of compassion, or the fire of commitment. Let us keep those with us until we meet again. Go in peace.